In 1990, in the Badlands of South Dakota, a fossil hunter named Sue Hendrickson looked up at a crumbling cliff and saw something no one else had noticed: a line of vertebrae sticking out of the rock. What she had found was the most complete skeleton of the most famous predator in history ever recovered. 90% of its bones still intact after 67 million years underground. That skeleton now stands in a museum in Chicago, and scientists still study it to answer a question that should already have an answer. How did this animal actually live, hunt, and grow? More than 3 decades after that discovery, researchers are still finding new things in those same bones, proof that even the most famous fossil on the planet has not finished telling its story, and this particular fossil has a lot of story to tell. This is an animal whose bite could crack a car door, whose nose could smell a carcass for kilometers, and whose family tree got rewritten by new research as recently as 2025. For more than a century, it has been called the Tyrant Lizard King, and that name has never stopped being true. Yet for all that fame, scientists still cannot agree on basic questions about how it hunted, how it looked, or even how many different kinds of it actually existed. Its name is Tyrannosaurus rex. And this is its story. Tyrannosaurus rex was a theropod dinosaur, a member of the group of two-legged, mostly meat-eating dinosaurs that includes everything from sparrows to velociraptor. It belonged more specifically to the Tyrannosaurids, a family of large predatory dinosaurs that dominated the northern hemisphere in the final years of the Cretaceous period. Tyrannosaurus rex lived between roughly 68 and 66 million years ago, right at the very end of the age of dinosaurs, in a world that already had flowering plants, early bees, and the ancestors of modern crocodiles sharing the rivers. It lived only in western North America, on a landmass scientists now call Laramidia, a long strip of land separated from the eastern part of the continent by a shallow inland sea. As far as paleontologists currently know, this single narrow strip of land was the only place this animal ever existed, which makes it one of the most geographically restricted apex predators of its size in the entire fossil record. The first bones ever recognized as Tyrannosaurus rex were found in 1902 when fossil hunter Barnum Brown discovered a partial skeleton in the Hell Creek Formation of Montana. Brown wrote to his museum that there was no question this was the find of the season, and he was right. 3 years later, in 1905, the animal was formally named Tyrannosaurus rex. Brown went on to find more specimens over the following years, and today, more than 50 partial skeletons have been recovered, making Tyrannosaurus rex one of the best documented large predators in the entire fossil record. Despite that large number, skeletons of young, growing individuals remain extremely rare. Most of what is known about this animal comes from adults, which means an entire stage of its life is still represented by only a handful of bones. What makes this animal so strange to think about is the sheer span of time involved. Tyrannosaurus rex is closer in time to humans living today than it is to Stegosaurus, a dinosaur most people lump into the same prehistoric picture. Stegosaurus died out around 80 million years before Tyrannosaurus rex even existed, while Tyrannosaurus rex itself vanished only 66 million years ago. That means more time separated these two famous dinosaurs from each other than separates Tyrannosaurus rex from the modern world. Almost everything people picture when they think of Tyrannosaurus rex comes from reconstruction, not from a single complete skeleton, because no specimen found so far is 100% whole. Scientists build the full animal by combining bones from dozens of individuals, comparing overlapping parts, and filling gaps using close relatives. The most complete individual found to date, nicknamed Sue, preserves about 90% of her skeleton and measures around 12.3 meters or 40 feet from snout to tail tip. Another specimen, nicknamed Scotty, is considered the most massive Tyrannosaurus rex ever found, with bones so robust that researchers estimate it carried more body mass than any other known individual. Bone, however, only tells part of the story, since soft tissue almost never survives 66 million years underground. The single most remarkable feature of this animal sits right at the front of its skull. A Tyrannosaurus rex skull alone could stretch past 1.5 meters or 5 feet, longer than most adult humans are tall, and inside it sat up to 60 teeth, some reaching 20 centimeters or 8 inches in length. When researchers modeled the muscles behind that skull using high-resolution scans, they calculated a bite force of around 8,000 pounds concentrated at the back teeth, among the strongest bite of any land animal that has ever lived. Behind that devastating head sat a body built almost entirely around movement and balance. A long, heavy tail counterbalanced the massive skull, holding the spine roughly level as the animal walked, while 2 powerful legs, each ending in 3 weight-bearing toes, carried a body that could weigh more than 7,000 kilograms, or over 15,000 pounds. Its arms, by contrast, were startlingly small for an animal this size, each barely longer than a human arm, ending in just 2 clawed fingers. Scientists still debate what those arms were actually for, with proposals ranging from gripping a struggling meal, to helping the animal push itself upright after a fall, to holding onto a mate, and the honest answer is that no single explanation has been proven over the others. What its actual skin color looked like is just as unresolved, since no pigment has ever been recovered from a Tyrannosaurus rex fossil, leaving every reconstruction an informed guess rather than a certainty. The world Tyrannosaurus rex walked through was a lush, humid floodplain, crossed by rivers and dotted with conifer forests, ferns, and early flowering plants, alive with insects and small mammals scurrying underfoot. Towering herbivores moved across that landscape in numbers, duck-billed hadrosaurs grazing in herds, horned ceratopsians like triceratops standing their ground in defensive groups, and armored ankylosaurs built like walking tanks. Tyrannosaurus rex sat at the very top of that food chain, an apex predator with no natural enemy of its own once it reached adulthood. Some of its hadrosaur prey, including the duck-billed Edmontosaurus, could actually outrun it in short bursts, which meant successful hunts likely depended on surprise and ambush rather than a straight chase. Younger, lighter Tyrannosaurus rex individuals were almost certainly faster and built differently than the adults, which may have let them chase down smaller, quicker prey that a fully grown adult could no longer catch. Its bone-crushing bite was matched by an extraordinary sense of smell, made possible by an unusually large portion of its brain devoted to processing odors, letting it detect a carcass from a great distance. That nose served 2 purposes at once, helping it track down already dead animals to scavenge as well as living prey to hunt outright. Bite marks matching Tyrannosaurus rex teeth have been found gouged into the bones of Triceratops and hadrosaurs, including one Triceratops pelvis bearing nearly 80 individual bite marks where the same animal had clearly returned again and again to strip meat from the same carcass. Current fossil evidence does not support the idea of organized pack hunting, since Tyrannosaurus rex remains are rarely found grouped together the way some smaller predatory dinosaurs are. So most researchers now picture this as a solitary hunter rather than a coordinated pack predator. Several skulls also show healed bite wounds to the face, scars that most likely came not from prey, but from other Tyrannosaurus rex, suggesting these animals fought each other over territory or mates with some regularity. Tyrannosaurus rex did not always have the ecosystem to itself either. For decades, smaller Tyrannosaur skeletons found alongside it were assumed to simply be juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex still growing into their adult size. Multiple studies completed in 2025 changed that picture, examining microscopic growth, rings preserved in a small throat bone called the hyoid, and finding that these smaller animals had already stopped growing, meaning they were fully mature, fully grown adults of an entirely separate smaller species now called Nanotyrannus. That discovery means 2 different apex-sized tyrannosaurs were sharing the same landscape in the final million years before the world changed completely. Tyrannosaurus rex did not fade out slowly or lose a long struggle against decline. Its world ended in a single afternoon. Around 66 million years ago, an asteroid roughly 10 kilometers or 6 miles wide struck the coast of what is now Mexico, releasing energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs in an instant. The impact triggered earthquakes, tsunamis, and wildfires across enormous distances, but the true killer came afterward, as vaporized rock and soot blocked sunlight from reaching the surface for months. Temperatures are thought to have dropped sharply across much of the planet during this period, turning a world that had been warm and humid for millions of years suddenly hostile to almost everything living in it. Plants that depended on photosynthesis collapsed first, and the herbivores that fed on those plants starved soon after, sending a wave of collapse upward through every level of the food chain. For an apex predator like Tyrannosaurus rex, built to feed on exactly those large herbivores, the loss of its prey base was just as deadly as the impact itself. Within a relatively short span of time, every non-avian dinosaur on Earth was gone, including a species that had ruled its ecosystem for roughly 2 million years without a single rival capable of challenging it. The speed of that collapse is part of what makes the event so difficult to fully grasp. An ecosystem that had functioned for millions of years unraveling in a span of time closer to a human lifetime. The extinction was not limited to dinosaurs either, since roughly 3/4 of all species on Earth at the time, in the oceans as well as on land, disappeared in the same event. Growth studies on individuals like Sue suggest Tyrannosaurus rex could live into its late 20s, reaching that age through an explosive adolescent growth spurt that added enormous amounts of weight in just a few years before slowing dramatically into adulthood. That kind of biology, built for a long life and a slow climb to dominance, offered no protection at all against a threat that struck the entire planet at once. The same asteroid that ended Tyrannosaurus rex also cleared the way for an entirely different group of animals, the small, fast-breeding mammals that had spent the whole age of dinosaurs staying out of sight to inherit a world finally empty of giants. Every large land animal alive today descends in some way from species that managed to survive that same catastrophic afternoon. An event this destructive is rare even across the immense span of Earth's history. Before the story ends, a few facts about Tyrannosaurus rex that did not fit anywhere else, starting with this one. A newly hatched Tyrannosaurus rex was about the size of a skinny turkey, weighing only a few kilograms, a far cry from the multi-ton adult it would eventually become. Despite its enormous bulk, recent biomechanical studies suggest an adult Tyrannosaurus rex walked at roughly the same pace as a person, around 4 to 5 kilometers or 3 miles per hour. And unlike most reptiles, its eyes faced forward rather than to the sides, giving it binocular vision and excellent depth perception for judging distance to prey. One fossilized Edmontosaurus even carries a healed scar matching the shape of a Tyrannosaurus rex bite, direct proof that at least one duck-billed dinosaur escaped an attack and lived to tell the tale. Scientists have even studied Tyrannosaurus rex droppings, fossilized as solid lumps called coprolites, and found crushed bone fragments inside them. Direct physical proof that this animal really could digest the bone it bit through. And although adult skin impressions found so far show scales rather than feathers, some researchers think a young Tyrannosaurus rex may have carried a light, fuzzy covering for warmth before losing it as it grew. Sue herself, the most complete skeleton ever found, was around 28 years old when she died, among the oldest ages recorded for this species, and scientists still are not entirely certain what finally killed her. What stays with me about Tyrannosaurus rex is that it is simultaneously the dinosaur everyone thinks they already know and one that professional scientists are still actively arguing about in papers published within the last year. That gap between popular image and ongoing science is part of why this animal earned a full episode rather than a passing mention, and it is a reminder that even the most familiar fossils still have new chapters left to give up. Let me know in the comments which extinct animal you would like to see covered next. I read every suggestion. If this video taught you something new, a like and a subscription helps this channel keep telling these stories. See you in the next one. And until then, stay curious. Thanks for watching. Watch this video next and subscribe for more.